Hey, what's up? Welcome to Father in Our Future. I'm Anthony Vandegrift, and I'm not the perfect dad, but every day, just like you, I am trying to be better. If you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you have heard me give you the mission of fatherhood: to equip and to disciple our kids to be a part of God's mission in a greater capacity than ourselves. I compiled different ideas from the Bible to come up with this mission. But what I want to do for you today is take a little bit of time to talk about this tag that I put at the end. Because some people, when they talk about the mission of fatherhood, they stop at discipleship. I think it's important that we include this little tag to do it in a greater capacity than ourselves so that our children go above and beyond ourselves. And I want to tell you why I think that today. I want to break in real quick and let you know how much I appreciate you listening to the podcast. My prayer is that I can be a help and a blessing to you on your fatherhood journey. So if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. And if at any point you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email at fatheringourfuture@gmail.com. And if you want other good content, you can go to the website, check out the blog, and other free resources. Thank you again for listening. Be blessed. Do you remember when you became a dad and all of a sudden those New Balances just hit differently? There's something about fatherhood that impacts your wardrobe, and I'm happy to share that I can help you with that now. Fathering Our Future now has merch. We have sweatshirts and hats and other pieces of clothing that you will enjoy sporting as a father. Just go to fatheringourfuture.com, select merch, or click the link in the description of this episode and get you something that you will enjoy and be proud to wear as a dad. Dad, I want you to know I care about you and I am on your side. So I have a free gift for you. I've put together a 7-day devotional, extracted from my devotional, Following Our Father, to help you realign your identity as a dad, to be the dad that God has called you to be and that your children need you to be. Simply click the link in the description below and get your free 7-day devotional. All right, let's get straight to the text because this is pretty important, and it kind of helps us get in the right direction right out of the gate. Jesus is talking, John chapter 14, verse number 12. Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. Jesus says they will do even greater things than these being the works I have been doing, the works that Jesus had been doing. He says that if you believe in me, you will do even greater things than what I have been doing. Now that's pretty remarkable when you consider Jesus is the one who says that. The first point right out of the gate that I think we need to catch is that if Jesus himself is okay with this, we should be too. Jesus spoke these words. This was more than just a hope that Jesus had. Jesus didn't simply hope that his followers would live on and do greater things than him. It wasn't just some idea. Jesus, the man who spoke to the winds and to the waves, and they had to listen to his words, with those same words spoke, "You will do even greater works than these." For Jesus, it's a sure thing, and he's completely okay with that. But sometimes as fathers, we struggle with this, and I want to take a little bit of time to talk about the struggle, but let me just justify this first point, because I think this point stands alone as enough evidence for us, but let me just clarify it a little bit more. So when I talk about equipping and discipling our kids to be a part of God's mission in a greater capacity than ourselves, I believe that there is a biblical idea of succession, and a succession that leads to a greater height. So take, for example, John the Baptist. He comes onto the scene and he is preaching with the spirit and the power of Elijah, and he tells everyone listening to him, there is someone who is going to come after me greater than myself. He's going to be so great that I will not even be qualified to kneel down at his feet and unlatch his sandals. That is how far beyond me he will be. And then Jesus comes onto the scene, clearly shows himself to be that individual. And then Jesus in John 14, again with this idea of succession, says, I'm going to go to the Father. You who believe in me will continue to do the works that I have done, and you will also do greater works than these. Jesus is totally okay with a succession of greater things being accomplished after his departure. If Jesus is okay with that, we have to be okay with that. It is a biblical idea that is laid out in Scripture that generation after generation after generation will go and achieve more and do greater. That is something that as fathers we need to be okay with. But I think we have a bit of a problem when it comes to that because we blur some of the lines. So what I mean by this is, as men, we are confident. If you struggle with low self-esteem and insecurities, if you really search your heart and your life, there's got to be something that you're confident in. There's got to be at least one thing that you know, I do this well. I do this better than most, or I do this amongst the best who do whatever this thing is. In some form, in some way, all of us have confidence in some area. But if we're not careful, confidence can become arrogance, and then that can lead us to a little thing that we call pride. And the problem with pride is that it's destructive. It can break things down, including our identity as dads. Because it's very easy for us being competitive. At least I'm very competitive, and I don't know that I've met many other men who weren't competitive in some shape or form, but being competitive, it's very easy to take a loss and to make it mean something way more than it actually does. And it's very easy for us to do this with our kids. We, in some weird way, have come to a conclusion that because we are dad, because we are husband and head of the home, because we are the leader, that we are the head authority, and with that comes greatness across the board, that we have to be number one, that we have to be the best of the best, that we have to be the greatest. And I'm okay with that idea and aspiration as long as it is about you and your personal individual pursuits. As long as that never jeopardizes your greater and more primary values of your relationship with God, your wife, and your kids, because you come after that. So as long as you're not jeopardizing those three things, that's fine. That's great. But what happens is we get so involved with trying to be the best and trying to be the greatest and trying to always show ourselves to be that it becomes problematic. That when you're doing something with your kid and they outperform you, you get upset. The reason why you get upset is because you have taken your accolades and you have associated them with your identity as a dad. Here's what you need to know. Your identity as a dad is not predicated on your performance. You are and will always be a dad. It doesn't matter if your kids go on to do greater things. That does not change you as their father. Clearly, Jesus was not worried about this himself. He did not think, if my disciples go and do greater things than me, will I still be God? Will I lose that position? Will I lose my place? Will my throne be taken from me because my disciples go on to do greater things? Not even a concern. This is the beautiful thing about Jesus, and I'm not going to go far on this tangent, but the beautiful thing about Jesus and his identity as our King, I think part of the reason why he is the King of Kings is not solely because he is the greatest of all kings, but it's because he is unlike any other king. Because all other kings would have demanded that their subjects come before them while they sit on the throne. But Jesus was a king who was not tied to the throne. He did not believe that he had to sit in the throne to be king. He knew that he was king no matter where he went, which is why in Luke 15, when he describes himself to the Pharisees and to the multitude that he is with, he likens himself to a shepherd, a woman, and to a father who go. They leave their place. They leave their plans. They leave their reputation to go and pursue the thing that they desire, the thing that truly belonged to them. Jesus is okay stepping aside from his reputation. Jesus is okay stepping away from his throne because he knows it does not change who he is. He will still always and forever be king. And the same is true in the same sense for you. You will always and forever be dad. So it doesn't matter if your kid makes more money, gets a bigger house, has a nicer car, marries a prettier woman, has more kids than you, becomes smarter, gets more degrees. It doesn't matter if they have more friends, if they climb higher on the corporate ladder, if they're recognized and known in the streets. It doesn't matter if when you die and they die that people remember them and they don't remember you. None of that changes who you are as their father. That will never, ever change. You need to be okay with that because when you're okay with that, then you can actually help them and do what is right as a dad. Here's an example that I think plays into this pretty well. I like The Office. I think The Office is probably one of the greatest series ever. I really struggled when Michael Scott left, though. But when Michael Scott is still there, this is early on in the seasons of The Office, Dwight Schrute is awarded the Salesman of the Year, and with that comes a speech that he has to give at some sort of a convention. Well, Michael is telling Dwight that he killed it when he had to give his speeches, that he just delivered such great wisdom and humor, and everyone loved it, and so he's trying to help out Dwight, who's not very confident in his public speaking ability. Skipping ahead, they get there, and Dwight is just frozen. They call his name. He does not move. Michael goes up in his place, and Michael tries to deliver the material that he was trying to give Dwight, and the crowd is not receiving it well. They just give him these blank stares. They can't believe that he has the audacity to say some of these outlandish things. And Michael is sweating. Finally, Dwight stands up, rushes to the stage, gets behind the mic, and begins to give his speech. Michael, when he notices that the crowd is now getting behind Dwight, he leaves the convention, goes to the bar, and he kind of sulks. At the end of the episode, Dwight comes to the bar, he finds Michael, and they start to talk, and Michael starts to make Dwight laugh. And then Michael goes and he gives this ridiculous justification. He said Dwight was able to move 1,000 people with his speech, but I was able to make him laugh. I made the man laugh who moved thousands. I did that. He takes away the glory and the credit that probably was due to Dwight, and he places it on himself because he was able to get him to laugh. And sometimes I think it's too easy for us to do this with our kids, that we credit ourselves for every accomplishment that they have. And I think that's ridiculous. The sports analogy is probably the easiest one to go to here. If you were a good athlete growing up and you never went pro, and then you had your kid and you instilled in them everything that you knew and they go pro, if you cannot celebrate their success that goes beyond your personal success without saying, oh, I taught him everything he knows. Because that's not true. Because he had teammates, he had an environment, he had coaches that you did not have. He had influences that you did not have. You did not teach him everything that he knows. If you cannot just celebrate him, but you have to take all the credit, this is where you, in some way, have shorted your kid because you've missed what you're supposed to be doing as a dad. Hey, if you're a new dad or choosing to embark on a fresh start as a father, I have a gift for you. I wrote a book a while back called Cut the Crap, Direct Tips for Becoming a Dad. I don't teach you how to change a diaper. That one's totally on you. But I do talk about 5 elements that you need to focus on as a dad if you want to be the dad your children need you to be. Now, this is completely free. It is yours. There's no strings attached. The only thing that I'd like you to consider is if the book brings value to you as a father, make a contribution by going to fatheringourfuture.com/support. But you don't have to. Again, it is a free gift from me to you. The link is in the description after the end of the episode. Click it, get your copy, and I pray that it helps you. Everyone has an opinion on fatherhood, but there's only one place that we should actually look, and that's to God, our Father. That's why I wrote Following Our Father, a devotional for dads. In this, I cover 30 qualities and attributes of our Father in heaven that help us better understand our identity as dads. Each devotional is followed up with a daily step so that we can take the principles of our Father and immediately apply them to our own lives. This is a tool and a resource in your hands that will bless you. Click the link in the description and get yourself a copy of Following Our Father today. There will never be a leader like Jesus. Jesus is the fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecies about the suffering servant, because that is how Jesus led. It wasn't about him. Even if he got the short end of the stick, as long as he was able to serve, that is how he led. And that is how we as fathers are also supposed to lead. We should be instilling things in our kids proactively, with intentionality, not waiting for our kids to come to us with their questions. It's very obvious in my situation. I'm smarter than my kids. My kids are very smart, but my kids are 8, 6, 4, and 1 year old right now. I am smarter than all of them. No questions about it. But I'm not going to wait around with all the things that I have been privileged to learn throughout my life. I'm not just going to wait around for my kids to come to me with questions and then give them my knowledge and my wisdom. I'm going to be proactive in this because I don't want my kids to learn what I learned at the same point that I learned it. I want them to know more so that when they get to the place where I learned something, they have the ability to ask deeper and better questions, that they can take an understanding that I have gained and they can go further with that understanding. Because this thing is not about me. This thing that I'm doing as a dad, it's about them. It's about honoring God by making it about the children. This is not about me being the greatest dad of all time. I don't need anyone else in this world to think that. The only people that I'm concerned with thinking that I'm a good dad are my children. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones who actually get to make that determination. They get to determine whether or not I was a good dad. I can't go around and tell everyone, I'm a good dad. That's why I tell you I'm not perfect, because I know I make mistakes. I'm just trying to be better. I'm trying to grow and to develop as a dad. I'm not going to tell you that I'm a good dad because my kids will get to make that decision one day. Right now, they tell me that I'm a good dad, and it melts my heart. I appreciate how loving and sweet my children are. And in 10 years, they'll get to reevaluate that and make that judgment again. They're the ones who decide that. So if I'm going to do this right, I'm going to honor God and I'm going to serve my kids so that I can be the dad that they need me to be, so that I can help them achieve the things that God would have them achieve. I'm going to give myself to them for their prosperity. That's what we're doing as dads. We're not doing this so that we can get the credit and recognition. We're doing this so that they can go beyond ourselves. That's our mission, to equip and to disciple our kids, to be a part of God's mission, not ours, in a greater capacity than ourselves. As we raise our children up to be disciples, and as they walk side by side with us, we are sharing our testimonies and our experiences with them. We are sharing the things that we have learned about God with them. And one day, we come to that final step. And when we take that step, they keep going. And I hope and pray that for my children, that I have been able to give them everything that I have learned, everything that I know, everything that I understand, so that with that, they can take the next step and the step after that and the steps that I'm unable to take. And I hope and pray that they can take it further. That's what we ought to be desiring and pursuing as fathers. So we don't wait around for questions. We're intentional and proactive with passing on what we know and understand to our kids. This is why reading a Bible devotion or a Bible story each and every day and having some dialogue with your children about it is important, because they're going to have questions and you're going to get the opportunity to speak to that. On Sundays after Sunday school, yes, you ought to ask your children, what did you learn? Because there have been some times that I've asked Frankie in particular, what did you learn? And he said, I was a little bit confused, but this is what they talked about. And then I said, that's not really right. And here's what I believe to be the better interpretation of this. Here's why. And I have these conversations with him. Those are the types of things that we need to be doing with our kids. We need to help them. I'll give you one last example, and I've probably shared this before, but I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to shut up. We'll pray, and then, I'll peace out. But I love the little game Mancala, and I've played this game with the kids since they were super duper young. And Frankie in particular has that same competitive spirit that I have and his mother has. So our children were just destined to be competitors. But we would play Mancala, and for a year straight, I beat him every time. And he took losses super duper hard. So this was not me stroking my ego. This was not a chance for me to say, look, I'm better than you are. End of discussion. And that will always be the case. No, every time he lost, we talked about sportsmanship. And so we implemented the handshake at the end of every game. I would win. I put my hand out. Good game. Would you like to play another? And that's what we would do. He would cry. He'd get upset. And I would tell him, Frankie, it's just a game. Has no value. Has no meaning. Doesn't change who you are. Doesn't add anything of depth to your character. It's just a game. It's a game. Someone has to win. Someone has to lose. And if you're not okay with that, you don't have the maturity to play the game. And so he got fine with losing, but he still would compete and he still would try. But here's the other thing that I would do. Every game I'd win, I'd go back and I'd tell him, you should have done this. Here's why you lost on this move. And I would try to explain to him the way that I think about the game strategically so that he could then think the same way. And as I would teach him these things, he'd focus on one of the strategies and he'd do a little bit better and a little bit better. And finally the day came. It was a tough day. But I remember we played the game and I was a bit worried this time because I think he might have just taken this one. And I counted the pieces. There's 48 pieces and I had 23. So I knew he had 25, but I can still count faster than him. So I still won in that regard. I'm being an idiot. And so I waited for him to say he had 25. He counts. He said, Dad, I have 25. I said, I only have 23. He had a big smile on his face, and I put my hand out, and I said, good game, Frankie. And he said, good game, Dad. Do you want to play another? And it was neat because, he's young, and what was remarkable is that while it's a pointless game, Mancala doesn't give him any sort of credit in any sort of sense. Same for me. But still, it was strategic. It's a game that requires you to think. And in that moment of getting to see him beat me, I wasn't mad. I was so proud because it clicked. Enough had clicked for him to truly compete and beat me in this little game. The funny thing is that after he beat me, he thought, if I can beat Dad, I can beat anybody. And he proceeded to do just that. He beat his aunts. He beat his grandparents. He beat his mom. That was really fun to watch because I taught him well. And any adult that he could find. He doesn't want to play kids. He only wants to play adults because he's next level when it comes to Mancala. But it was just a moment where my pride shifted away from me and to my son, to my child. And I think that's the appropriate response when our kids excel, is that we should not get destructive tendencies because we have pride. Instead, we should celebrate because our pride is not rooted in ourselves, but now it's rooted in our kid. We are proud of them because they're great and because in some instances they're greater than us, and that is okay. So 2 things that I need you to remember. The first is that this idea of succession with greatness attached to it is a biblical idea. Jesus himself was okay with this. If he was okay with it, we have to be okay with it too. And the second thing is your identity as a dad is not predicated on your performance. So what if your kid bests you in any and every possible way? You will still always and forever be dad. And nothing can change that. So don't feel don't feel threatened. Don't feel like your identity is jeopardized, because nothing can do that. You are now and forever dad. Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the guidance that you provide us. Even in this journey that we call fatherhood, your word speaks to us and gives us guidance. It gives us insight as to how we should be not just dads, but the dads that you've called and designed us to be, the dads that our children need us to be. I pray that you would help us pursue just that, to be the dads that you've called us to be and the dads that our kids need us to be. God, help us to train up our children. Help us to disciple them, and help us to do so in a way where we desire that they go further than ourselves, where we're okay with that, where in the same sense that you spoke that those who believed in you would do greater works, we speak that out about our own children, that we are proud that they will go above and beyond ourselves. God, help us to do away with any pride or ego that we have that is unhealthy, and help us instead to be proactive and intentional in instilling wisdom and knowledge and character into our children. God, I pray that you would help us do this. I ask it in your great name, in Jesus' name. Amen. Not always the easiest thing to do, I get that, but I want you to know that you can do it. And I think if you will attempt it, that you will find there is greater joy and fulfillment in lowering yourself, in humbling yourself like Christ. This mentality, this Philippians 2 mentality, I think you'll find that there is much more being like Christ than there is being proud of yourself. Now, I know this thing called fatherhood is not always the easiest thing to do. Sometimes there's hiccups and challenges along the way. I want you to know that while I'm not the perfect dad, I am at least here to offer my help however I can. So you can reach out to me with your questions, fatheringourfuture@gmail.com, and I will do my best to help you as quickly and as best as I can. But for now, thank you so much for being with me. This is Fathering Our Future. I'm Anthony Vandegrift, and I hope you'll join me next time. Hey, one more time, I want to thank you for listening to Fathering Our Future. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, please do so wherever you listen, and consider leaving a nice review because I would appreciate that. But if you're not connected to Fathering Our Future on social media, you can find it on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and there you're going to get some additional content on a more regular basis that you don't always get here on the podcast. Now, the last thing that I would like to ask of you is that you would consider becoming a financial partner of Fathering Our Future, because dads make a difference, and dads are not disposable. Dads are vital, and they are essential, and they are needed. And the impact that dads make doesn't just reside in the home. but it has a ripple effect that goes to churches and communities and culture. And I'm inviting you to be a part of equipping and empowering and educating dads to be the dad that God has called them to be and that their children need them to be. You can become a financial partner with Fathering Our Future. It can be a one-time contribution, a monthly commitment, but by doing that, you play a direct role in impacting dads. You can check the link in the description below. You can pray about it. You can get on board. And I thank you in advance for becoming a part of Fathering Our Future in a special and a dynamic way. God bless you.